Hey guys, how's it going? Rhetorical question because you can't answer. Bored now, back with you. On this video, I will be reviewing the sixth episode of Star Trek Picard, the Amazon series. Sixth episode of the first season, and it is called The Impossible Box. Now, I have to apologise because I've gotten a bit behind on these, so tut tut. I have another one to review after this, episode 7. So obviously these go up on Friday on Amazon. So episode 8, I'm getting confused myself. Episode 8 will be going up on Friday. And so I'll make sure I have episode 7 up before then. So I've got a couple behind basically, but as I said, episode 6, The Impossible Box. So pretty much full spoilers from the start here. And I think what's interesting is that all the episodes up to this point, the first 5, have all been 45 minutes long. But this episode, The Impossible Box, is closer to the hour. It's, I think, like 53 minutes. And also the episode after this, episode 7, is even closer. It's like 57, 58 minutes. And they pack in a lot in these 2 episodes, the next 2 including this one. And I think they sort of work as a 2-parter. So I think that says that they're giving that extra time for this extra stuff. So I think I mostly like this episode. I think there is some good drama, some good tension involved. But there's some frustrating kind of plot moments as well. And it's almost split in two, where we get the stuff with Narek and with Sergi on the cube, which is again very frustrating, very irritating. And finally, at the end of this one, we've reached a point where they're sort of moving on from it, from their kind of romance anyway, and that whole plot. But then you get the stuff with Picard on the ship and him trying to get access to the cube, and him trying to get to Sargi and get to the truth of what is going on. So I think that's when the episode kicks into high gear. So a couple of things to say on the ship. Obviously, at the end of last week's or episode 5, we had the surprise ending where Alison Pill's Dr. Jurati killed off Maddox. They had an intimate moment. We obviously know, or we saw that they had a relationship in the past, and they managed to rescue Maddox. He was in critical condition, but Jurati killed him, which was obviously a surprise. And that kind of sets the mind racing. What's her ulterior motives? Why did she kill him? Is she essentially opposing Picard and his mission? So we don't get the answer to that in this episode, but what we do get, I think, is the fact that then there are kind of question marks. She has to cover herself. She tells Picard then Maddox that his heart gave out. So that's the cover story. She also tells him that Maddox created these 2 twins as a way to find out, to get the truth behind the band. But Picard is like questioning, well, why would he send Sergi there though? Because that would put him in potential danger. But there's just little dramas with the crew and so Dorati has this thing with Rios, the pilot, and there's pretty good chemistry there, but he just connects with her, and it's a way for her to de-stress, I guess. But this I think this does sort of pay off later on, but at this point you think, well, why are we having this random relationship? But whatever, there is good chemistry there, and it's something that does come into play later because in the next episode, which I won't mention, but I think that there is a reason for it. It's not just they decided to have this sort of relationship. Um, but again, really good performance from Alison Pill as the character becomes very murky, and I think Pill is so skilled at just balancing all these different elements and just showing what the character is going through, but she's good at showing emotion, but also being a blank sort of slate where there's like ambiguity to, can she be trusted? Is there a good explanation for her actions? That kind of thing. We also see then, I'm trying to remember all the Raffi. We see that then um, she's still taking it hard. The falling out with her son and that whole side of things. She's drinking very heavily, so she's not feeling particularly in the best frame of mind. But they do actually, and it's almost like a comedic scene. So Picard needs to get access to the cube because it falls outside of obviously his remit, because they're here on like a sort of like a renegade type mission outside of the books. So they need someone to give them credentials, to give Picard credentials. So Raffi uses one of her contacts at Starfleet, and I mean, I did enjoy the scene. Actually, it is quite funny because like at first when she's talking to this person, she doesn't let on, and then they're already out in space. They're like 3 hours away, and then that becomes like the punchline where she basically blackmails this person because she says, well, we're 3 hours away and it's an unofficial mission, but if something goes wrong, they're still gonna blame it on Starfleet, that being the Romulans. So it's an enjoyable little scene, and I think for the sake of the plot moving forward, then Picard needs access onto the ship somehow, and I do like the fact that it's not just so simple, or it's not just him kind of bombarding his way in, sort of thing. The fact that they do need to find some sort of loophole for him to get aboard. So I do enjoy that scene. I enjoy the comedy of it. But so what happens is this connection that Raffi has says, well, he can have like 24 hours clearance, and that's it then, and don't contact me again, Raffi. But again, this is a nice example of the crew all together, and I think as a crew that they work pretty well. They all bring something different to the mix, and they play off each other very nicely. As I said, Renos has good chemistry with Gelati. I think Raffi adds something, that she adds a bit of a spark to things. has a bit of an attitude about her. Obviously, Picard is an engaging presence. Um, it's kind of like Emron is the only one I'm not quite sold on. He does feel a bit kind of generic, and so far they haven't. He's a bit in and out of the plot. He hasn't really had the same amount of growth as the other characters, but whatever. I mean, he comes into it a bit in this one and the next one. So obviously Picard beams on this ship onto the cube, and at the same time we get in side by side plot with Sergi and with Narek. Unfortunately, Narek is terrible, I'm afraid. I'm not sure if it's the actor. Because I know it's one of the Treadwells. I got the impression the actor was actually quite good, but yeah, the character has been dreadful, and that side of the plot has been so plodding, so like just on the nose and melodramatic. And so it's this odd sort of episode. I mean, not everything in the Picard side of the plot works neither. There's little nitpicks to be had, but generally I was enjoying that stuff. So I think it's the other side, the Narek stuff, which really, because they're trying to pull the two halves together. But Picard beams onto the ship. He's met by who he knows from years back, and who is essentially this character who's trying to rebuild relations with the Borg. He shows Picard like this rehabilitation of the Borgs, but who is doesn't know about the behind the scenes and the backstory and the sinister stuff going on with the Remnants. He's unaware of that. He's this open-eyed like optimist who's trying to bring peace and harmony, really trying to bring the two like races together. So he's a good character. I like the world building, and I like a lot of the technology and stuff we see. Some really good props in this episode actually, and the scenes with him and Picard are really strong. And actually, as Picard gets closer to finding Saju and things come to a head, I think this episode, it does have some like good tense like chase sequences and just things coming together, time running out, all these different things. So I think even though the Narek Saju side of the plot drags things down, I think at the same time, I think the tension itself is pretty good, and because I mean fundamentally what they're doing with Sanju is interesting. It's just that actual element of it with Narek and the kind of romance and stuff, and yeah, it just hasn't been very good, as I've expressed already. The terrible like ice skating sequence from a few episodes ago, or a couple of episodes. But this episode opens with Saju and a memory that is the flashback, and it's her and her father from years ago. It's like an implanted memory, and so she awakes in bed with Narek, and he's obviously dialing up the pressure, adding these new methods, implanting memories, trying to get her to reveal to him like where her home planet was originally. So in this episode, things come to a head with Saju because she realizes, she scans like these different items in her room, and they keep coming up. Whatever it was, I can't remember exactly, but something like 36 months old or something. So she starts freaking out, like why is everything here like 36 months old? And Narek tries to manipulate this and enough to keep keep her on side, sort of thing. And he agrees to help her, and he takes her off to like this room in a different zone, which is outside of the cube. So this is when obviously the plot kind of speeds up, and Picard and Hugh are trying to get to Saji in time. So yeah, Narek basically, as I said, manipulates this, uses like the memory, her memory of the past, and she actually sees. So they get the detail of this red planet, which is where she's from. So then the plot is that they're gonna try to get to this red planet to wipe out all synthetic existence. But yeah, she also has this vision of her on the table in her father's like greenhouse, and this being her as a model. So why am I a model? Basically, why is he working on me? And that's when, and again, this is the melodramatic stuff, because they definitely try to convince you that Narek is conflicted, then he's forced to do this, then he actually has feelings for Saji. So he has to be quite blunt with her. He says, because you were invented. You were like an whatever. I can't remember the exact term, but he says, yeah, because you're not real, you were never real. And that's when he leaves the room and he locks her in and he releases this gas. So he's obviously he has to kill her off, part of his duties, but it's there, this melodramatic stuff on the nose. He's conflicted, but you just don't care because the whole plot has been boring and engaging. There's nothing riding on their kind of romance, and you kind of think, well, if you care about her this much, then yeah, just don't do it. Rebel. It's kind of, yeah, it's kind of a bit rubbish and just forced drama, really, for the sake of it. This plot has definitely been the weakest of this series. But anyway, Sarju gets a good sort of badass moment where she powers her way through like these floors, these wooden like panels. So she literally punches through, because otherwise she's going to die. She drops down into the next level, and eventually she runs into Picard, and who they're able to track her down. And obviously with this big reveal, Saju's just free because she thinks her whole existence has been a lie. She because of finding out what Narek was up to and his motivation, she's just freaked out, and she doesn't trust anyone. As I said, she thinks her whole existence lie. So Picard has like an uphill struggle to kind of win over her trust. But we get this dramatic ending where obviously now Saju's being tracked by the Romulan army on the base. They obviously know Picard is there, and so they have to try and escape quickly, and that becomes, yeah, the dramatic sort of ending. And even though Picard told him to stay behind, Emron shows up. He comes in. He's there to kick some ass. And whatever. I'm not really that into Emron at this point, but there may be. I may get into him more as a character, but he's not one of my favourite. But whatever. Him and who stick it all on the line. They stay behind as Picard and Saju beam up, or they beam across to somewhere else, which will be revealed in the next episode. But yeah, that you get that sort of ending with Enron and Who staying behind, and I like Who's final words about choose peace, basically, as like the soldiers are running towards him. So there's certainly some good tense moments like this, some big like powerful cliffhangers. I think there's some really good like mythology being built in this episode. It's just frustrating because the Narek stuff is so bad in it. So it's one of those where it's a good episode, but it's still very flawed because of the Narek stuff. But I guess it says something. Then I was enjoying the other stuff like enough, then it wasn't spoiled by how bad the Narek stuff is. So overall, a good episode. There's been better ones, but I mean, episode 5, was it 5 or no 4? 4 was definitely the weakest episode. So yeah, mostly a good episode, episode 6, and I'll be back with the review of episode 7 soon because I want to catch up before Friday's new episode. But let me know your thoughts on episode 6 if you've seen it in the comments below, and I'll be back with more Picard reviews soon. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.